The first officer told me not to call the police again. That was how I knew, too late, that I had already let the wrong man into my house. I found the cameras on a Tuesday morning while cleaning behind the vent in my bedroom. Not big ones, little black squares stuck with gray putty, wired to nothing that I could see. One under the hallway shelf, one inside the smoke detector casing, one behind the fake drawer under my bathroom sink. They had microphones. I work accounting for a small grocery chain in Briar Glen, which means my life is receipts, payroll disputes, and pretending I do not see overdue invoices. I took Wednesday off and tore my house apart. By noon, I had 3 cameras and a sandwich bag on my kitchen table and a sick feeling that I couldn't name. I called the police at 12:41. When the line connected, there was a soft tone, then a pause, like a voicemail catching, like a transfer. A woman said, "Police department." I said, "I found cameras in my house." She asked for my name, and I gave it. I started giving her my address, but she cut in and said, "An officer will be sent." The officer arrived 19 minutes later. He came in a black SUV with an official plate and a little temporary light bar on top. His uniform looked right to me. Dark shirt, badge, radio, firearm, and cuffs. He had a small scar above his left eyebrow. "You the caller?" he said. I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm nervous." "Show me," he said. That was almost all he said. He moved through my house like he'd already seen it before, not looking around, not curious, but certain. At one point, he paused beside the hallway closet and glanced toward the loose floorboard near the laundry room. I'd never mentioned it. Almost nobody knew it warped upward when the weather changed. He tapped it once with the side of his boot like he was confirming something, and then kept walking. I remember thinking maybe police officers were just observant. Now I think he already knew the layout. I brought him to the kitchen and handed him the bag. He didn't photograph where I had found them. He opened the bag, looked once, and then folded it and slipped it into his pocket. I said, "Do you need to see the rooms?" "No," he said quickly. He wrote 2 short lines on a sheet of paper, not even a form, just paper, and then put that in his pocket too. While he wrote, his radio crackled softly. Not dispatch chatter, no codes or voices, just a burst of static and then what sounded like breathing. He turned the volume down immediately. I noticed his hands then. They weren't shaking, they were steady, calm in a way that made me feel embarrassed for being scared, like this was all routine for him. I said, "Should I leave tonight?" He looked at me. He said, "Don't talk to anyone about this. Don't call back. We'll follow up when we have more." That was it. And then he walked out with the bag with the 3 cameras. 15 minutes later, 2 real officers knocked on my door. The woman officer said, "Ma'am, we received a disconnected call from this address. We're here for a welfare check." I said, "You already sent someone," confused. The male officer said, "No, ma'am, we didn't." I described the black SUV, the light bar, the officer, the scar. She stopped writing. "Our department doesn't have black SUVs," she said. The male officer looked past me into the house. He said, "May we come in?" They walked through every room while I stood by the sink with my hands under my arms. They checked the vents, the detectors, the outlets, the attic hatch. They found nothing else. They stayed around for 20 minutes. I took a statement. They asked if I had enemies, asked about my job, asked who knew that I lived alone. No one said the obvious thing, that someone had been listening when I called. Someone had known what to take. Before they left, the woman officer gave me her card. "Lock everything," she said. "Stay with someone tonight if you can." The male officer said, "Call us directly if anything happens." I said, "But he told me not to call." Neither of them spoke for a second. The male officer looked toward the front windows instinctively. Not dramatic, just fast, like a reflex. Then the woman officer said, "That wasn't us." "Give us a minute," the man said. Like for 1 second, he thought someone might still be outside. The woman officer lowered her voice after that. They walked into the front room. Everything became quieter, more careful. She asked me whether the man had touched anything besides the cameras, whether he had asked where I worked, if he had gone near my bedroom or any of the other rooms. I started realizing they were no longer treating this like a simple impersonation. I sat in the living room while they spoke quietly into radios. I heard pieces, impersonating an officer, evidence removed, possible surveillance. The male officer told me not to stay alone. I called my sister Lydia from the porch because I didn't trust my own walls anymore. She arrived in 26 minutes, wearing pajama pants under a winter coat, and didn't ask questions until I got in the car. I went to her house and told her everything. The next morning, I went home. The real police came by with a detective from the county. They'd pulled the non-emergency call log. My call had connected to dispatch, but for 7 seconds, it had been routed through an outside line. The detective would not explain how. He only said they were looking into whether the phone system had been spoofed or compromised. But 7 seconds was long enough. Enough to hear my name. Enough to know that I found cameras. Enough, somehow, to send a man who knew where I lived. They found footage of the black SUV from a gas station 2 or 3 blocks away. There was no plate visible. The official plate on the front was fake, printed plastic under a clear cover. The light bar was the kind anyone could buy online. The uniform was close but wrong. The wrong patch shape, wrong belt, wrong badge finish. Things I would never have known. The detective asked me 3 separate times whether the man had ever been out of my sight while he was in the house, and I kept saying no. But the longer I thought about it, the less sure I became. There had been moments. Him standing in the hallway while I grabbed the bag, him near the kitchen when I checked the second camera. 30 seconds here, 20 there, like tiny gaps. Enough time to open a drawer, enough time to leave something behind. I haven't heard anything back yet. No arrests, no updates from anyone, nothing. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about the way he moved through my house that first day. Not like a stranger, not someone experiencing it for the first time, but like someone returning, looking for something, and coming back to collect it.